starting to buy up all the little seed companies. And pretty soon they're going to be controlling these. And I can't begin to tell you how important it is to get your own supply of non-hybrid seeds as soon as you can. What are non-hybrid seeds? Let me read what a non-hybrid and heirloom seed is. Heirloom / non-hybrid seeds are seeds that are harvested from a particular produce and when planted the next spring will reproduce the same produce it came from. This can be done with the same results year after year. In other words, these are the seeds that our forefathers brought down from these are the seeds that our forefathers brought from Europe, where they would plant. And then at harvest, they would hold back a few of the seeds for the next spring where they planted. And then they would harvest that crop, and then they'd hold back a few seeds from that harvest for the next year. And they do this year after year. Now, man has started meddling in the food chain. And there are major companies out there. I'm not going to mention any names. There's one that starts with an M. And they are starting to genetically modify seeds where they do not reproduce very well the first and second generation. As a matter of fact, I understand that some of them are engineered where they are called terminator seeds. That means they commit suicide at the end of their growth period, and you can't even replant their seeds. Why are they doing this?
It's a war.
What do you think?
Buy more.
It does have a tendency to secure your job, doesn't it? And it is a tremendous tool to control people. Friends, I really hope that you will consider getting your seed supply as soon as you can. Seeds can store for years if you know how to store them. Talk with me tomorrow and I'll give you the name of 2 books that you can order that will show you how to store seeds from year after year after year. Now, we want to be in a position, friends, where we will have our own source of water. We want to be in a position where we'll have our own source of heat from our own renewable wood supply. Remind me tomorrow and I'll talk about how many acres we need to have our own renewable wood supply. We want to be in a position where we will have our own nutritious food. We'll be able to raise our own nutritious food. And finally, one of the most important ingredients that we can cover today and tomorrow and through the rest of our life is trust in God. Without trust in God, friends, we won't even get to first base. I mentioned earlier, and I want to ask you again, how many of you have heard that statement, prepare, prepare, prepare? Get ready, get ready, get ready. Most of us have. So if God has told us to get ready and to prepare, can't we be assured that He's going to help us to do that? Have you ever, well, let me tell you my experiences up in Macon. There's a river that flows through Macon and Lumber City. We just went over it on the way down. It's called the Okmulgee River, a muddy old river most of the year. And growing up, I remember when there would be floods, particularly in the springtime. Have you ever seen a river when it's flooding? Sure, most of you have. It's very ominous looking. It is overflowing its banks, and then the boundaries of the river is much wider. And then there's trees growing out of the water, and it's muddy, and you can see where the main track of the river is. The water, the current is just tumbling down. It looks terribly dangerous, and it is. It looks very ominous. It looks very cold and deadly, and it is. From what I understand, this is the type of river that God told the Israelites to cross over into the River Jordan. Do you remember that story? Where He asked them to cross the river, to go into the River Jordan, and they walked up to the edge of the river, and they stopped, and the river didn't part. It didn't part. still. They actually put their foot in the water. They got their feet wet. And as soon as they read this in the Bible, when they stepped into the water, the river parted. And friends, here we are in a modern version of this scenario. God has asked us to go forward. He loves us so much that He has sent us warnings. He's told us to move to where the houses are not crowded closely together, where we will be free from the interference of enemies. He's opened doors miraculously for us to come into the churches and to talk with the people, to tell you that the time has come to go forward, to get ready, get ready, get ready. He's coming very, very soon. Friends, snap out of your denial. We're not asking you to go forth rashly. We're asking you to go wisely. Because, friends, if you wait to the last moment, you're going to be forced to move rashly. Now is the time to consider this, to pray for the Lord to show you how, to ask the Lord to provide for you. Now let's close our meeting with prayer, but before we do, I want to tell you that we were going to go until about 7:40, and then we were going to make our DVDs, our resource material, available after Saturday. But because we went ahead and had this meeting now, we're going to go ahead and close, and we will have prayer, and then we'll be back in the morning at 9:30, I believe. Tomorrow morning at 9:30, we'll start out with a short devotional. Then I'm going to be covering a topic that many people have asked us to cover, and that is what to look for in land and in a homestead. What to look for in land and in a homestead. I've been building homes and developing land since 1976. We know a little bit about it. We've lived off the grid for almost 10 years now. We know a little bit about that. So we're going to tell you some things that you need to avoid to stay out of problems. We're going to tell you what to look for, what not to look for. Then we will break for lunch. I believe everyone's supposed to bring a sack lunch. Bring your own lunch tomorrow. Then right after lunch at 1 o'clock, I believe, we're going to be starting a simultaneous set of seminars. Nick will be in here, I assume. In here, Everett? Okay. He will be covering alternative energy. He's going to have a display of an alternative energy system. You're going to see how that power is taken from a 12-volt battery and inverted where it'll operate a light bulb. We'll try to find the vacuum cleaner around here, and we'll show you how to run a vacuum cleaner, etc., etc. Then Nick is going to cover independent water systems. What to look for water. How do you get that water off your property and pressurized where you can have a nice hot shower? You can flush the commode. You can wash the dishes. He's going to show you how to do that independently. Now, during the same time, those of you ladies who might not want to get into the technical aspects of that, my wife Nancy will be over in the kitchen, and she's going to be teaching canning and bread making. And let me tell you something. I'm here to tell you. When she bakes bread, we have our own wheat grinder. She'll be covering one of the best wheat grinders that you can purchase, where to get some of the healthiest wheat grown in America. And when she grinds that and she makes it into bread, I mean, our little cabin in the mountains, our cottage smells so good. And how many of you know how to bake homemade bread here? Okay, there's a few of you. How many of you know how to can? Okay, there's fewer of you. Well, everywhere we've gone in the last year and a half, the last year, people have come up to us and they have asked, can you teach canning? Can you teach how to make homemade bread? A lot of ladies don't know how to do that. So those of you ladies who want to learn, to get your feet wet, be over at the kitchen at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So Nancy will be teaching canning, homemade bread, making homemade bread, and Nick at the same time we'll be giving a seminar on alternative energy and independent water systems. Then we'll wrap up the afternoon. I'll be having a seminar talking about something I'm not sure about what I'm going to talk about. It's about, we've had a lot of people ask us, there's various ways I can go, but it will probably be the steps in building a cabin, your own cabin. You'll be shocked at how inexpensive it costs. It is to scaling down and building your own cabin. And I'm going to just touch on the stages of it, just so you'll understand. And then I'm going to tell you the books that you need to get that will help you to go through every phase. And friends, you can do it. We have interviewed Adventists who have already moved to the mountains and to the country, who've never built, well, one guy built a doghouse. And that's all the building he'd ever done. We interviewed 2 people on our DVD, A Good Report. You can do it. God will help you if you get the right books. I'm going to tell you what books to get. And you can build your own little cabin, and you can save tens of thousands of dollars. So, we hope to see you in the morning at 9:30. I think we will. Do we want to open our table tonight, or we're going to wait till tomorrow? We'll just wait till tomorrow and open our table for resources. I want to say this. We have hours and hours and hours of DVDs that will help teach you how to set up your homestead and how to live in the country. Much more on our DVDs than what we can cover here in the weekend. So, yes, if you have a question.
You can be getting familiar with the various skills that you might need in the country. There are things that you can be doing, and you can't expect God to drop something out of heaven when you haven't done everything that you can do. God does for us what we cannot do for ourselves, but we still have a part to do. We looked at that yesterday. And so there are things that you can do even if you don't have the resources. And so God is asking us, remember, to set our will to obey. And we have to do everything that we can. When we've done everything that we can, the rest is in His hands, and He'll take care of it in His own time. So I started doing that. Even though I didn't have any money to buy land with, I started looking. And I walked off land and everything. Some people would think I was crazy, but I don't care. I've learned that with God, all things are possible. And you can't expect God to give you a piece of land if you haven't even been looking for it. So I started looking. And then we went on a trip, and a speaking trip, and we came back, and it was like God just in a special way told me that something was going to happen very quickly. And all of a sudden the idea came into my mind, well, what about that little cabin way back in the mountains that is for rent? There was a little cabin on 5 acres that we had known about for a couple of years that was for rent. The owner didn't want to sell, but had been trying to rent it out. We had told a number of people about it, trying to get them to rent it while they were looking for land in the area. And so I thought about that, but then I thought, no, I never have been interested in that place because I haven't been interested in renting. It's such a temporary situation. And I don't like throwing money away, it just seemed like throwing money away to rent a place. And so, but I got to thinking, well, I wonder if the owner might be interested in doing a long-term lease. I'd heard about the Forest Service leasing out cabins, doing a 99-year lease. And I thought, that sounds interesting. So I talked to the owner, and sure enough, the owner was interested. And the bottom line is, I have a 50-year lease on 5 acres with a little cabin. It's a bit of a fixer-upper, but it was not in bad shape. A little touch-up. It's not completely finished, but it certainly is fairly livable. It just needs a little bit of touch-up here and there. And way back in the mountains, off the grid, and basically, the agreement was that if I will keep the place up and pay the property taxes.
Praise the Lord. Amen.
What can I say? God is good. And the Lord had worked out the situation where the owner hadn't been able to find anyone who would rent the place, and they were getting tired of having to pay people to keep it up, and so they were just trying to get someone to stay there. And so I have a 50-year lease on the place, and I pay probably less in 1 year than most of you pay in 1 month. Praise the Lord. The Lord has 1,000 ways to provide for our needs of which we know nothing. And that's just one little example. I'll tell you another story very quickly. A friend of ours, an old friend from years ago, they were living in a suburban area, and they were convicted they needed to get out. And so they started trying to sell their house, and finally it sold. It took some time, but it sold. And so then they were trying to get out of debt and get moved into the country. And they told us, this is going to be next to impossible. They said, after we get out of debt, we're not going to have hardly anything left over. It's just going to be just a small amount of money. And so we're going to try to find something for that cheap. And but it sounded like it was very, very little. It's going to be very, very difficult to find something that cheap. So they started looking. They made a trip to a particular area to start looking at land. And on the way, this old deer ran out and hit their car and really messed it up. Oh, they were discouraged. And they turned around and they started heading back home. And they got partway back home, and all of a sudden, he stopped and he said, "Wait a minute. Devil's trying to stop us. There must be something good ahead." So they flipped around and headed back, kept looking. And so I think that was on Friday, and so they went to church at the local church the next Sabbath. And I guess folks probably asked why they were there, and they said they were looking for land. So I guess Sunday, a fellow contacted them and said, "I've got some land that you might want to look at." And so they went and looked at it, and they could tell it was a lot more than what they could afford, because they had to find something that was dirt cheap, and in order to try to stay out of debt, or in order to try to get out of debt. And so they told him, this is more than we could do. So he said, "I'll tell you what, there's this little old lady over here that you might want to talk to. She might be able to work something out with you." And so they went and talked to this little old lady. And so she proceeded to grill them up one side and down the other with all kinds of questions about, what do you believe about this, about that, about that. I mean, she thoroughly examined them. And after questioning them for quite some time, she said, "Well, I think we believe about the same way." She said, "I'd like to have good neighbors." And she said, "Tell you what, this 5 acres back here, I've been selling it for $5,000 an acre. Of course, that'd be $25,000. And she said, I'll tell you what, I'll sell you the whole thing for, I think it was $3,000. It was either $2,000 or $3,000. That's not per acre, that's the whole thing." And they just about dropped their dentures. And they couldn't believe it. And so the Lord works in amazing ways. And they told us, they said, this is enabling us to be able to get our homestead set up and be completely out of debt. Praise the Lord. 1,000 ways to provide for our needs of which we know nothing. So this is what we got to remember. Don't limit God. When He's told us to do something, He's going to enable us to do it. That is the promise. That is God's promise of success. The very fact that He wants us to do it, He doesn't ask you to do something without enabling you to do it. And so when you come to the point at which you've done everything you can and there's nothing else you can do, you are in the most secure place you can be. You have the greatest assurance of success, because then the rest is God's part. And He is fully capable of taking care of any situation. So whatever may be your situation, the Lord has a way. And so let's just keep this in mind as we go into these practical topics today. And why don't we go ahead and get started with what to look for in land or a homestead.
Glad to see all of you braving the weather this morning. And before we get started, I have a little business I need to take care of. I want to mention, I think yesterday I might have said that we need to move out of Florida. store for us. And all I can say is that we need to move where the houses are not closely crowded together, and where we will be free from the interference of enemies. That's a quote from Ellen White, or a paraphrase of that. Also, we need to be where we will have our independent wood supply for heat, our independent food, and our independent water system. And where that is, I don't know. You might have it where you are. But another thing I want to bring up too is we are, and I don't know that Nick did cover this yesterday. If he did, I want to touch on it again, and that is we're told, Bill did, where's Bill? Here it is. Bill touched on it yesterday, and that is we are told to evangelize the cities from our outposts in the country. And so that's where we need to be located. And when you study the story of Enoch, it says I forget the words that were used, but he journeyed into the cities, or he took a trip into the city or whatever. It didn't sound like it was an afternoon stroll. It sounded like it was a trip that he planned. And my impression of that is it was a ways away, and that he went in to make more than one day of it, I believe. So anyway, I just wanted to cover that in case anyone misunderstood me, or if I misspoke yesterday. Now, I want to also just mention, before we get started here, just give you a little background of where we're coming from. I used to build homes. Let me ask you, who was here last year for our seminars? Okay, several were here last year. Okay. For those of you who were not, just to let you know where we're coming from. Oh, good, okay. This is fine, Everett. Sure. I'm okay with this. Maybe the next session. Thank you. I started building homes. I graduated from Southern Missionary College and started building homes in 1976. They were small homes, custom homes, and then we built on into the late 90s when the Lord showed us the time had come for us to get out of that very materialistic profession, because our homes had gotten very, very large and very just unnecessary. We needed to get into another business. And so we moved in the late 90s to the mountains. I prefer myself, I'm not saying this is where the Lord will lead you, I prefer the mountains for myself. There's many reasons why, and if any of you want to know, come to me afterwards and I'll tell you some of those reasons. But anyway, so I started building in 76. The Lord showed us it was time to close our business in the late 90s. And then after that, we did home repair for a few years, and then the Lord showed us to start this ministry. And as I look back now, all those years, those decades of building were a training process. The Lord was getting us ready for the work we're doing now, which is much greater than building a 10,000 square foot mansion for somebody. This is, nothing compares to this, because we are so close to the end of time. The rubber is meeting the road now. Okay, before we go any farther, let's all kneel and let's ask the Lord to bless us this morning, or a homestead. There are a couple of prerequisites we need to lay out first before we get started. And the first one is, number one, well, like yesterday, when we start our seminars, we start with a spiritual foundation, which Nick laid out yesterday, not from what he said, but from what the Lord says. And then I took it from there, gradually moving us into the practical aspect, which we do have a part to do. And this is what we're going to be talking about today. We covered the spiritual aspects yesterday. Today we're talking about the physical aspects that the Lord expects us to look at. And before we get into those, I just want to cover, just to start this talk out, with a couple of spiritual aspects. I mean, how can we get started without God's direction? Ask God or direction to show you where He wants you to move. People come up to us all across the nation saying, we just got emails just this morning asking, where do you feel we should go, this and that. And friends, we don't know. Only the Lord knows where you should go, because He knows what He has, what work He has for each one of you to do. And it's different than what we're doing. There was something I was going to... Yes, there was a report that came out recently. I haven't posted it on our website, and I don't know that I will. But it's a report that I've never seen anything like this before. And I go to it, and I look at it because I'm studying why they came up with these results. And it's a list. I forget what publication puts it out. It's a study that just came out listing all of the states of the United States and in representing the most liberty-conscious states on down. The states that are supposed to be the freest on down. And they have one state in the #1 position tied with another one. I don't want to mention those states because I don't know what criteria they used fully. We, as God's people, I pray that we're all God's people. By the way, we don't have a corner on the market. God has people all over the world. And I want to tell you this, we Seventh-day Adventists don't have a corner on the market. God has His children in other places, even outside of our denominational boundaries. Only those that will obey Him, keep His commandments, will go home with Him. And I pray that we all will. We're just so blessed that the Lord has given our church tremendous light. That means we have so much more responsibility on our hands, on our heads. But getting back to this report, I don't know what criteria they were using, but the state in the #1 position tied with another state, I don't know that I agree with. And then there's another state in second that might be up there, and then third and fourth, and on down. But it's really interesting to see what man thinks is important. I don't know why I was leading into this. I was going to tell you something about the freest states. This is terrible. I'm sorry. I hope I don't do this to you too many times today. But I haven't posted this. If any of you want to see this, this list, come to me afterwards, like I said, and I'll tell you where you can find this list. I might have to go to my computer and get it. But only God knows. This is why I'm saying it. Only God knows where we need to go. He might send us to a place that we thought, oh, I don't want to live there because I don't think there's going to be enough liberty here at the end of time or whatever. Friends, the Lord knows what He has in store for every one of us. It might be our family. It might be our neighbors. It might be that He doesn't have you where you are, or He might keep you where you are right now, and then within a few months, He might whisk you away. We just don't know. We have to be open to God's leading. I know I have friends here that just don't understand why they're still here. And I feel for them. But the Lord knows. He knows why He has each of you here. But you've got to listen to that still small voice behind you. I highly recommend you to pray and fast. Pray on your knees. Friends, there isn't enough reverence toward our God anymore.
Amen.
And I'm talking about kneeling. He is the sovereign, the creator of the universe. We're just little peons here. This little earth, this little planet is nothing compared to the bigness of it. It's incredible. We've got to realize how mighty He is and how small we are. So by all means, spend time reverently on your knees and fasting for the Lord to show you. Let me go over, the next thing I want to cover is 3 ways to know God's will. I covered this in our DVD, Go Forward, came out several years ago, and let's cover it again. 3 ways to know God's will. Number 1, by studying His Word, the Bible. And I might add in there also the spirit of prophecy, of course. The second way to know God's will is by following His providences. And I want to tell you, as you spend, and especially when you move out of the cities and you start to get out of the rat race and you don't take the city with you, that's so important not to take the city with you. When you move, make a clean break. Ask the Lord to create in you a new heart. Don't take that satellite dish with you, that television satellite dish or whatever. Don't take those bad DVDs. I don't know if anybody has any here, but what I'm saying is don't take the city with you. And when you move out to the country and you start to detoxify from the ways of the city, pretty soon you're going to start seeing God's providences that you never realized before. You're going to see how He saved your life going through this traffic intersection where you might not have seen before. You're going to see how you did something and you look back, you might even think a week or two, even a year later, you might look back and you realize the Lord tells you, see how I saved your life. See how I saved you from that temptation. Start looking for God's providences. This great controversy is for real. By following His providences. And then 3 ways to know God's will. The third way is by following the promptings of the Holy Spirit. As I just said, as you move out from the cities, as you spend more time in the Word and on your knees, you'll start realizing how the Holy Spirit is prompting you. Your mind will start opening, and that communication with the Lord is going to grow, and you're going to see things. You're going to hear things that you never even realized before. Okay. Having covered these 3, these are so crucial. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of this. The goals in looking at land. Now, I'm going to hit this one more time, and we're going to be hitting this all day long. This is one thing we want to get across to you. You must have your independent water supply. This is what I said a while ago. You must relocate. If you're not in a place where you can have these, you must look into, with prayer, relocate where you'll have your independent water supply, your independent heat supply, and your independent food supply. And don't think that if you move up to where there's a lot of snow and this and that you won't be able to grow vegetables and fruit. Yes, you can. We live, I'd say, within a couple 100 miles of the Canadian border. And there is more fruit grown in our region than ever was in Middle Georgia. And you might have to use a greenhouse. We're going to buy a greenhouse. We should have already had one, but we couldn't afford it. Lord willing, this summer we're going to buy a greenhouse. And we're going to start using that greenhouse and understand how to extend our growing season using a greenhouse. Don't think you have to live down in a warm climate to be able to eat. One of the most successful gardeners that I've ever heard about, organic gardeners, is Eliot Coleman, who wrote the book, hope I can remember it, 4 Seasons Harvest. This is an incredibly good book. I'd write this down. You can get it from Amazon. 4 Seasons Harvest. Maybe I'll get it out. I have it with us, and if I can find it in our trailer or in the back of our car, maybe I can bring it this afternoon. 4 Seasons Harvest by Eliot Coleman, 1L, E-L-I-O-T, Coleman. And also he wrote another very good book called The New Organic Grower. The New Organic Grower. This man lives in the state of Maine. It doesn't get much colder than Maine. He grows organic vegetables, and I think he makes $120,000, $130,000 a year growing organic vegetables. And he shows how to do that in these books. In our DVD, Urban Danger, that we've just completed, we only have just a few copies. We were really rushing trying to get these copies done for the South Orlando Church. This is the first church we're able to release these DVDs, and there's just a few. We'll be taking orders. But these, in this DVD, we spent, I think Nick edited in 15 minutes of the Bountiful Blessings Farm in Middle Tennessee. And they are specializing, the Dysinger family are specializing in raising organic vegetables in the wintertime. It gets cold in Middle Tennessee. When you look at the hardiness zone of Tennessee, it's like some areas in North Idaho, believe it or not. It gets cold there. We were there filming, and the one day we were there, they forgot to put a cover. Well, they put the cover crop over their little hoop house, but the wind blew it off. We didn't weight it down very well that night, or well enough, and it blew it off. Their broccoli froze, and they lost the crop of broccoli, most of it. So it gets cold there. But these folks have set up a tremendous farm, and in the DVD, out of this 2-hour DVD, I think Nick put 15 minutes of their gardening in there, and they use Eliot Coleman's method of gardening, 4 seasons harvest. Eliot Coleman has also come out with another book that's just come out. You can find his website by Googling Eliot Coleman. You can purchase these books from Amazon.com, 4 Seasons Harvest and The New Organic Grower. While we're on this, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to take you all on rides here and there, because things will come to my mind and I want to tell you about it while it's on my mind. So I'm going to go off on another tangent. Yesterday we were talking about seeds. I didn't want to mention this on Sabbath. I'm going to give you the name of, I know one book you need to get. How to preserve your seeds, how to store them, etc. How to care for each species or variety of seed. It's called Seed to Seed. S-E-E-D to S-E-E-D. Seed to Seed. I'm sorry, I don't remember the author. You can just Google that. You can find it on the net. You can go to Amazon, type in Seed to Seed, they sell it. That is probably, in fact, the Dysinger family told me, John told me, he said that's probably the best book out there on seeds. Okay. I want to mention a little bit about food. And if you have any questions, raise your hand. We have till noon, and I want to, with the Lord's help, I'll do the best I can to answer them, or at least we can discuss them. So, independent food supply. We're talking about vegetables and trees. Did you know that it takes, on average, a fruit tree 3 to 5 years after you plant it, before it will start yielding fruit? 3 to 5 years. I didn't know that until recently. We have a DVD called Planting by the Blueprint. Has anybody here ever heard of that? Okay, we came out with it recently, and I'll tell you just a little bit why I'm telling you about this. I'm not trying to sell the DVD, but I want you to have fruit as soon as you can. We got to know a master gardener in Placerville, California by the name of Len Hoak. Len is in his 60s, and when he was 13 years old, he took a course from Ellen White's grandson. And Ellen White's grandson was teaching how to plant fruit trees, or any tree, any deep-rooted plant, using the method that God showed Ellen White how to do this in Australia. Have any of y'all ever heard of that method?
Yes.
I'm saying, okay. All right. Most of you didn't raise your hand, so I want to tell you there is a method, and it's incredible. It's in Third Selected Messages, I forget what page. You can also go to a good friend of ours, Brad Neely. He has a website, Growministries. I think it's GROW ministries.net, I think. If not, you can Google Grow Ministries and it'll give you, was that it? Okay. On Brad's website is the details on how to plant a tree according to the Ellen White method. And I believe it was Ellen White's grandson that wrote this, I think. I just skimmed over it the other day. That's one place you can find it. or third selected messages. Or you can get this DVD that we did with Lynn Hoag, a master gardener, who learned this directly from Ellen White's grandson when he was 13. And Lynn has perfected this. He's used this for years and years and years. And so we found out that he knew this method, and we had planted our peach trees in Georgia 12 years ago, but we didn't understand when Ellen White wrote and put a layer of dressing in. Dressing, we didn't know what dressing was. We wondered what it was, and other things. And so Lynn explains all of this. We spent a day with him shooting this, and it starts out by showing some trees that he planted right outside the Placerville SDA church. They were giant sequoia trees, about this tall. And when we were there last year, I think they were about 3 years old, 3 or 3.5 years old. And 6 of those trees he planted according to the National Forest way of planting trees. The last one he planted according to the way God showed Ellen White to plant this tree. Well, the National Forest trees were about 4.5 feet tall, average around 4.5 feet tall. And then the Ellen White tree that he planted at the same time was 10.5 to 11 feet tall. All planted when they were 6 or 8 inches tall the same time. And this tree had taken off. It was over double the height, and it was 20 times larger in mass. The color was brilliant. You'll see this. We started off the DVD showing you this. Lynn is there explaining what he did. It's an incredible way. I mean, God created the earth. He should know how to plant a tree. And so he told Ellen White, this is how you plant a tree. And so this is the way you do it. And we're told that a tree will start bearing fruit within 2 years.
Wow.
2 years. Why am I telling you this? Not just to sell a DVD. I want you to be able to, when the Lord takes you to that place you need to go, I want you to plant fruit trees as soon as you can and use this method. Because when we can, we have, at least our family, we find that we eat more fruit in the wintertime, most of the time, than we do vegetables. My wife says she would much rather can fruit and cook with fruit than vegetables. You can eat fresh vegetables during the winter, you can eat it during the summer, then you can eat it part of the winter or whatever. Some of you might prefer vegetables, I don't know. We like both, but we seem to prefer fruit. That's so crucial to have your fruit trees going. And another thing, being a builder, I spent decades going into a raw piece of land and carving a homestead there, building it, and then watching a family move in. That's wonderful satisfaction. And see them set up and really enjoy their homestead. Now, having done that for decades and developing land also, I'm here to tell you, and doing it myself, moving out and setting up off the grid, it takes time. Just don't think that you're going to wait for this to happen and you're going to wait for that to happen. Then you're going to throw things in the car, go rent a U-Haul, and you're out of here. You're going to go set up. Next week, you're going to have your shop set up in the mountains. You're going to be cruising right along. No, you won't. I'm here to tell you it's not that simple. It takes time. This is coming from a builder that has done it for decades. We built our own cabin. I used to do all my own plumbing, all my own electrical work, all my own framing. I did this in our cabin. I did all of that. We did everything. And friends, it takes time. Even if you find, if the Lord leads you to a fixer-upper or a finished homestead, it takes time to close things down here and open things up there and get established. The Lord has told us to move wisely, not rashly. And this is why we're making these trips, trying to tell our people, ask the Lord to show you where and when you need to get out. He's already told us the time has come to leave. So we want you to move, not when you're forced to, if you'll even be able to get out then. If you're forced to leave, you're going to move rashly. We want you to move or follow the Lord's will, where we still have relative peace. And that's fast coming to a close. Okay. I told you yesterday I would mention how many acres you need to have your own independent heat. So I'm going back to number 2. Sorry, I'm starting number 3 and I'm going backwards. On average, you need 5 acres of forested land. Now, I'm going to give you qualifications for that. This is according to a wonderful little publication by Story Publications. It's called Woodlot Management. And in here they say, depending on, let me give you some contingencies here now. Depending on the size stove you have, or the condition of your stove, and when I say the condition of your wood stove, we're talking about, is it airtight or not? If it's not airtight, you can't restrict how much heat, how much wood it uses. It will heat up your house. You're going to too much. You have to open your windows. That's a waste of heat. You want to conserve the wood so it will last longer. Your trees on your property will last longer. If you have a wood stove that is not airtight, in other words, an old wood stove, whether it be a wood cook stove or a wood heating stove, if the gaskets are worn and you don't have new gaskets in it or whatever, you need to be able to shut that stove down. You need to be able to crank it down to restrict the flow of oxygen into it so you can restrict the burn time of that fire. Now, let me get back to the contingencies. Depending on the shape of your stove, the size of your home, how well your home is insulated, the climate that you're living in, and that can also include how much rain, because the more rain you get in your area, the faster your trees are going to grow. Depending on those contingencies, it'll take 5 acres, roughly a minimum of 5 acres to heat your home. Now, let me give you a little idea of how much wood. We live in a 1,300 square foot home. It's not completed yet. We moved into it. Last year we said the same thing. It's a little more completed, but it's not completed yet, and we're not going to complete it until we can pay cash. We're not going to go get in debt to finish this. We're paying cash for everything. And it's closer to being completed, but when we complete it, that means the interior walls will be completed. Then it will heat even better. But right now we're using 4 to 4.5 cords of wood a year to heat our home, 1,300 square feet.
How much?
4.5, I'd say average, 4 to 4.5, say 4 to 5 cords of wood. Now, what is a cord? A cord of wood is a pile of wood neatly stacked, split, where it's about 4 feet wide, 4 feet tall, and 8 feet long. 4 by 4 by 8 is a cord of wood. And we'll use 4 to 5 cords of wood. Congressman Bartlett, in our DVD that we're just releasing, Urban Danger, we take you on a tour of a little 16 by 20 home that he and his wife designed and he built 20 some odd years ago when they bought land in the West Virginia mountains. See, he's been planning for decades. And he says in there that they have a wood-burning cook stove that heats that house. By the way, that house will sleep up to 10 people, all of them on a bed, not on the floor. A 16 by 20 house, up to 10 people.
Wow.
He and Ellen this is their second marriage for both of them, so they have children from their first marriages and their second. So they have 10 children. So they needed to build something that would heat a lot, that would sleep a lot of people. So they did this. That little 16 by 20 cabin will use, he said, about 3 cords of wood. This is in West Virginia in the mountains. It gets really cold there too. It gets as cold there as it does in our area in the Northwest. So his little cabin is 16 by 20. They don't live there now. It's on their property for people in the future, I believe. It uses 3 cords, ours 4 to 5. Ours is bigger than that little cabin. That'll give you a little idea of how much wood it takes. Now, just to give some of you a little better idea, a cord of wood, you know what a full-size pickup is. Some of you know what a full-size pickup is, and you know what a long bed is on the back. Some of you know what a long bed is. If you have a full-size Ford, Chevy, or Dodge, and a long bed. In between the wheel wells is 4 feet wide. The long bed is 8 feet long. So if you were to neatly stack wood in that long bed pickup, the width in between the wheel wells, from the front of the bed to the tailgate, and 4 feet high, that's 1 cord. So it's basically, we burn 4 to 5 pickup loads of wood a year. And it costs about $30 to cut that. Oh, and I want to tell you, wood is such a wonderful deal. Wood will heat you twice. It is so efficient. It'll heat you when you cut it. You'll even sweat when you cut it. And then when you burn it. So wood is a wonderful way to heat. Okay, I think I've spent enough time on this. Let's move forward. Southern slopes and northern climates. Yes, sir.
Let me just ask you a question there. When you said about burning all this wood, from a builder's point of view, did you insulate the bottom, the sides, and the top? And you're still using that kind of heating energy?
Yes. The question was, as a builder in our home, did we insulate the floor, the sides, and the roof? Yes, we did. Our floor has R30 in the floor. Our walls have R19. We built our cabin using 2x6 studs. In the South, we always use 2x4s because of the climate down here. You use 2x4 studs in the wall, you can use R11. And then you can put other supplements to that to help insulate it better. In the northern climates, and if I were to ever build my home again anywhere, I don't care if it was in Homestead or Key West, I wouldn't build in Key West, but in southern Florida, I would even build it with 2x6 exterior studs. That's exterior walls only, not interior walls. You don't need 2x6 on the interior, just 2x6s exterior. And it looks to me like this church was built with 2x6 exterior, unless it's block. I don't know, center block. And the question was, did I insulate, and it still uses that much wood? Yes, I insulated it, and you can still see where air gets out because we haven't finished our walls. We've been there 10 years, and we haven't finished our walls yet because you don't make a lot of money when you're in a ministry, and we don't want to go into debt. So as we are just starting to finish it, and that will dramatically increase our efficiency to where I think we'll probably use maybe 3 to 4 cords. Now I want to say this, all of our wood is pine or green, evergreen, which in the South is a no-no. You want to, in the South, in the East, you want to use hardwood to keep your creosote down. But when you're in the Northwest, we use lodgepole pine, which isn't bad, and also tamarack or larch. It's really interesting how God has created trees in various regions of the country for His children to use to heat. In the East, ash, oak, hickory, they're wonderful woods to use. In the Northwest, God created tamarack trees. The BTUs in those trees are almost as good as an ash tree. And it's incredible how well that pine, or it's like a pine, by the way, it's a deciduous pine. It loses its needles in the wintertime. It looks dead in the wintertime. But it burns wonderfully well. On our property, He blessed us with lodgepole pines. You don't have lodgepole pines here in the South. I'd never heard of them until we moved to the Northwest. They're real tall, like 70 feet tall, and they have a canopy at the top. They're straight, and they might be this big around or this big around. They're just wonderful firewood, and it burns pretty dry also. So, yes, sir, you had a question?
Oh yeah, what I was gonna say is, for the vast majority of everybody, they don't have the resources and stuff like that to, and the money and the preparation time and all that. Could they just go outside of the cities, the big cities, into a smaller city, get them, a couple crates of dried beans? You know how Walmart sells those dried beans for $1 a bag, and oatmeal, and get a bunch of plastic containers, fill them full of water. I mean, for the person that doesn't have the ability to just go straight up to the mountains and to do all this other stuff. I mean, there's a lot of people out there, and when we warn them, they're not going to have time to do all that. That's the last thing they're going to even be thinking of. They're going to be like, well, I'm in a very bad situation, so I'm just, it's not over for that person. They can just get out of the big city, get themselves a bunch of oatmeal. You know which oatmeal I'm talking about?
Mhm.
The rolled oats.
Mhm.
Very easy to do. You can even eat them without even putting water on them. You eat them, dry if you have to. And beans. I mean, if anything, could you tell us for the people that don't have a lot of money? Like, let's say you have less than $1,000 to your name. What would you recommend to those kind of people?
Okay, that's your question?
Yes.
All right. I'm not trying to get out of that question or whatever. The first thing I do is pray for the Lord to show you. Spend a lot of time on your knees. Now, to expand on what you said, what we did years ago is we bought a year's supply of dehydrated food. We have it in our cabin right now. Now, I'm not telling y'all to do that, but I've prayed about it, and I looked over the situation, and I thought, I'm not a gardener yet. I'm planning on it. We don't have our garden in full swing. We planted our fruit trees. I didn't have fence up. This is another thing. If you don't have a fence up around your fruit trees, the deer are going to have a picnic. And they had a picnic on our tree. They ruined our fruit trees last year. So while we're getting established, and it takes time to get established, while we're getting established, I was going to provide for my family, not just bring a check home. I went out and I bought at least a year's supply for 4 people. Now, we used to not tell people this, but we do now. And we have it in storage at our place. Now, we're told that in the big time of trouble, if we put food away, it's going to spoil. There's going to be worms. People are going to take it, etc. I'm talking about the little time of trouble, before probation closes.
Right.
Okay, does that kind of answer your question?
Well, but for everybody else, because I was looking at the prices of dehydrated food, and it's pretty expensive for a family of 4. It was, I think it was $2,500, something like that.
If not more.
If
Right.
not more.
It is.
But for just normal people, people that they work at Walmart, they make $8, $7 an hour. I mean, could they just get beans, rice and beans? That would give people a lot of nutrients. The oatmeal, and just get as many water jugs as possible and fill whatever area that they're living in for not only them and any of their close relatives and things like that.
Were you here yesterday?
Yes.
Okay, did you hear Congressman Bartlett's, that clip?
Up on the screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you hear what he said? He said it's the patriotic, this is a U.S. Congressman, saying it's the patriotic thing to do. He said, I wish everybody had a year's supply of food. He said how was it? Y'all remember? I've watched it many times, I ought to remember it. He said, it would be a help to our country. It would help relieve our system. And it would. I couldn't be in agreements with you more. If you only had $500, we're not supposed to run scared. Because if we're doing the Lord's work, He will take care of us. But we do have a part to play. And I know I have a part to play, and this is why I told you all today. I don't know that I've told anyone else other than today. Maybe I have before. But we have a year's supply put away. And we're praying that people will use the brains that the Lord gave them. And He's given us warnings. And here He even gave us a U.S. congressman that is saying it's the patriotic thing to do. And there might be hoarding laws out there. I don't know. But use your mind. Pray about it. And the Lord will direct you. Yes, sir.
Just to address what he said, we did that very thing. We were trying to get our house ready to move. Didn't have a lot of money. The economy bailed out. So we had a few $100. We went and bought beans, and rice, and rolled oats, steel cut oats, 5-gallon buckets, dry, in the bottom, sealed them, put them in the pantry.
Yeah.
I mean, for $300, basically set up enough basic food for us to survive in case things fail, because things really looked bad at that time when we were doing it. So we have to do what we can do in the areas we are, trust in the Lord, keep pressing toward the ideal, which is getting out of the city and moving on.
Yes. And when probation closes and the big time of trouble comes, that food won't do us any good.
Amen.
It will be taken from us, worms will come in, et cetera, et cetera. That's when we are going to be 150,000% in trusting in the Lord. And we've got to trust in the Lord 150,000% now, but do our part. So, and I hope nobody leaves here thinking that we're here setting up a survival shop or whatever. I'm just capitalizing on what a U.S. congressman said. He wishes everybody would have a year's supply. I do too. I wish everybody had a year's supply of food. How many of you have how many of you are planting a garden, or how many of you have a year's supply from your garden last year? Is there anybody here that has a year's supply from last year? Okay, this is why we're talking about this. This is why I went out and got a year's supply of dehydrated food for my family until we get our gardening machine and orchard machine going, and then I'll feel a lot better. Our food will be much more nutritious than that dehydrated food that we bought from a Mormon company years ago. We can grow much more nutritious food. So anyway, does that more or less address what you're talking
And I'm
about?
sorry, I don't want it to sound like a bad question. I just wanted to ask for the majority of the people, they don't have the ability to maybe even drive but a couple hundred miles, and then they're out of money, out of gas, and then they have nothing to do.
This is why we're going around giving this talk now, for them to start saving, praying. The Lord will provide. Were you here to hear next? Did you hear next devotion all day?
It depends what time it was.
Okay. Well, my son just gave a devotion, and he was giving stories how God has provided. There's miracles happening. And so when people are here, when they're in the cities, and the Lord moves them to go forward, and they spend time on their knees, the Lord will provide. Nick was sharing stories, how people that just didn't have money. My son had less money. I don't know, I wasn't here when he told the story. Did he ask you, or did he make this statement? He probably had less money than anybody here. Okay. And I agree with that. He probably had less money. But now he has 5 acres, a beautiful area in the mountains, a nice little cabin, off the grid with a wood cook stove. And he pays, all he does is pays the property tax.